Yo, what's going on, everybody? So, I wanted to hop on here today and tell you the story of how I got my heart broken for the first time. I fell for a party girl, which at first I thought was the coolest thing in the world, but turns out not so great. I met this girl in my residence. If you saw my last video about that crazy date I went on in Quebec, this is the same girl. After that night, we kept seeing each other, and you've probably gathered from my other videos that back in the day, I loved to smoke weed, get drunk, and get into wild situations. Well, she was the exact same way. We were attached at the hip, we did everything together. This was the first girl who ever really reciprocated the same attention and energy that I gave her. I had little flings and crushes on girls before, but nothing real. I actually loved this girl. There was a big chunk of time where me and her were really solid. I thought I had found the one, but that was not the case. First year was like amazing. Me and this girl both came from small towns, so moving to the city was like this big, exciting adventure for both of us. We were always together. She basically lived in my dorm room, which drove my actual roommate crazy, but fuck him. We explored the city, partied a ton. Everybody was always inviting me and her out because we were kind of like the life of the party. We got everybody turning up. She was my best friend, like my first real love, and that year was one of the most fun times of my life. That pretty much sums up first year though, so I'm going to skip over the rest because you guys get the idea. Let's jump ahead to the summer leading into second year. After the first year ended, we went into a long distance relationship for the summer. Since she didn't have a car, I was always the one driving up to see her, and her town, man, it was a backwards ass country bumpkin town. I mean, the characters in that town deserves a whole separate video. It did help me understand though where she got her taste for like booze and partying from though, because her entire family were hardcore alcoholics. Like when I'd stay over there, I'd wake up in the morning, go downstairs, her dad would be cooking breakfast, neighbors just like walking in and out of the house uninvited. It'd be 9 a.m. and they're cracking Coors Lights and twisted teas. And at first I was like, fuck yeah, this is my kind of place. But that got old very quickly, and I obviously realized like how messed up that actually is. Her dad lived in this farmhouse with like 8 other people. He was dating some girl who lived in that farmhouse because recently he had left the mom. So when I would go up and visit, that's where I would go. Now, this farmhouse was like falling apart, man. It was crazy, and there were so many people in it. They were all chaotic. Their lives weren't the best, but when I would go visit, they would make me like the craziest feasts. They were like traveling catering chefs, right? So they'd whip up these wild meals, and they were all alcoholics. So we would just eat, party, and drink the entire time I was over. It was pretty dope. But I understand, like, looking from her perspective, you can't grow up in that. It was too chaotic. They had a bunch of these, like, tinfoil popcorn things hanging from the ceiling, like Jiffy Pop. So when I came over for the first time, I was like, yo, like, what the fuck is that? Like, why is there popcorn hanging from your ceiling? And one of the dudes in the house was just like, yeah, that's our fire alarm. When it starts popping, we know something's wrong. And I was like, Jesus Christ, you guys can like go down to the fire hall and get free smoke alarms and CO detectors, right? They'll just like give them to you. But that's like the kind of people that lived in this house. The reason I told you about her home life is because I think it's integral to the story to understand how she grew up. I mean, partying is basically all she ever knew. That's what she grew up in, being around those people and her dad. Now, second year eventually came around, and this is when things kind of began to take a turn. I was living in a house with some of my boys, and she was living in a house about 5 minutes away with a girl she knew. In my mind, this is when things were going to kind of settle down. We had our chaotic, crazy party life first year, and now since we had been dating for a while, almost a year, and we knew each other's families, I was like, things are going to be a little more tame. I also wanted to put like more energy into my schooling because the first year I didn't. And honestly, I just kind of expected her to be on the same page, but of course we were not. The girl she moved in with was the worst. At first, I didn't mind her because I actually thought she was kind of fun, but this girl literally went out, got drunk all day and night, never went to school, like more than me. All the bouncers in the downtown core of Ottawa, they knew her by name, the bartenders knew her. Every single time I went over to that house, there was random dudes there drinking. It made me like super uncomfortable. It was basically just a constant small party in my girlfriend's house. They actually started the year with a third roommate, but she moved out within the first month because it was like way too much to deal with and she was a normal student. It bothered the fuck out of me knowing that there was always random dudes at my girlfriend's house drinking, probably flirting with her, doing God knows what. I told her how much it like bothered me, and she would say stuff like, I don't even talk to them. They're Dakota's friends. By the way, her roommate, her name was Dakota, and she made me feel like I was crazy, like I was overreacting, but without spoiling too much, I wasn't. Dakota was constantly getting my girlfriend to go out, like all the time. I would go out with them a lot, especially at the start of the year, but the amount they wanted to go out and the frequency we were like drinking, it was even too much for me. I was actually being the responsible one sometimes, and I'd be like, yo, let's just stay in tonight. Why don't you come over to my house? We can chill, watch a movie. We don't always have to go out. It would be like a Sunday night, and I'd be sitting there like, we just partied Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Like, do you guys really need to hit the bars again? But Dakota was always in her ear, painting me as this jealous, controlling boyfriend who didn't want her to have any fun. But that wasn't the case at all. I just wanted like a little bit more balance, a healthy balance. I was happy to go out with them, but I also wanted to be a normal couple sometimes, you know? Just like hang out, chill, spend some quality time together. But Dakota would talk shit about me and make it seem like I was trying to control my girlfriend. Another point of contention between us at the time, though, was her drinking, because it was escalating to a point where I was actually uncomfortable. She completely lost control. She was drinking to the point of blackout constantly. She was failing school. She was like dropping out of classes. And I can't count how many times I had to help her like throw up when she was barely functioning at the end of the night. She had zero self-control. She would say yes to anything. And if I was like staying in or wasn't around at the time when she was out with Dakota, I was genuinely worried about her well-being. Like, which was new for me. This is not how it was when I first met her. Things were going way beyond what I was used to. And that's where we started clashing a lot because I would try and talk to her and tell her like, yo, I care about you and that like what you're doing is weird and bad, but I probably handled it in the wrong way. I came off like controlling, you know, I would just give her these angry lectures instead of helping. It's hard when you care about someone and watch them do things that are clearly destroying them, but they don't see it that way. So I sucked ass at like addressing it. I just expressed it through anger. Also, it's a little embarrassing when every single time you're at a party or out with your friends, your girlfriend is the most fucked up one out of everyone consistently. Like, I was always trying to like control her drinking, like the amount she drank when I was with her, which also caused a ton of issues. She would get so mad at that. And I'd always be like, you don't need more shots. You can barely fucking stand. Like, relax, you know? And of course, she would get all pissed off at me, and then the night would end, and I'd be holding her hair. Looking back, I think what I didn't understand at the time was that my girlfriend grew up in that party environment. Like I mentioned, her dad's lifestyle, the farmhouse, that's all she knew. And honestly, that's how we met. We met through partying in our first year. That's what bonded us together in the first place. So the problem was I changed. I still loved going out and hitting bars, of course, but that wasn't the only thing I wanted to do. I kept trying to show her that Dakota was dragging her down, but my girlfriend took it as me being like controlling and boring. I used to be her best friend, constantly doing wild shit together, saying yes to everything. But once I grew up a bit and chilled out, she just replaced me with Dakota. Once we all went home for Christmas break, it gave me like a 2.5 week break from me and her. We still texted and talked on the phone, but since we were both back in our hometowns, it was back to being long distance again for the holidays. I saw her on Christmas and it was all right, but being home, it changed how I saw everything. Sometimes when you're like wrapped up in something, you can't really see it for what it is, but stepping away for a bit will give you clarity. And that's what happened. It just kind of hit me how I was over it. I came back in a completely different mindset. I didn't have any tolerance left for the situation. I also remember hanging out with one of my like close friends over the break, and he knew my girlfriend. All my friends did. You know, she had been around for a while at this point, and he made a joke just being like, "Man, your guys' relationship, it like just revolves around drinking and partying," which I'm not going to lie, that one actually kind of stung at the time, but he was right. So when I went back to school and she came back as well, I stopped going out and she went harder than ever. She was out until like 4 or 5 in the morning almost every single night with Dakota. I stopped going out, like I said, completely. I was saying no to her all the time. I didn't want to keep like wasting money, basically just tagging along to make sure she was okay. I was way over that. That's when I realized like the trust issues really kicked in. I never knew where she was, who she was with, or what she was doing. Also, I can't remember if I said this earlier in the story, but Dakota had issues. Like, she was a very attractive girl, but she went out every single night to get with random guys. Like, that was her whole purpose. There was always random guys coming around Dakota over at the house. Also, when I wasn't going out with them, the trust issues were like through the roof because I thought it was just a matter of time before Dakota would try and like hook up one of these guys and my girlfriend, you know? That's partially the reason why I was also going out with them to begin with, because I just didn't trust what was going to happen if I wasn't there, which is so dumb. You know, I was just being an idiot and like lacked all self respect, I guess, because I should have just left this relationship so long before I did. Now, I've been talking about a lot of the negative stuff, and I do want to make it clear at this point, the majority of our relationship had still been really good. You have to remember, for an entire first year and that whole first summer, things were like amazing. It was one of the best times of my life. It was only over the last 6 months where things started to get rocky and going downhill. So if you're wondering why I didn't just leave, I don't know. It was like she was the first girl I ever really loved. And I was just desperately grasping on the fact that like I wanted it to go back to how it used to be. I also blamed like everything on Dakota. She was my arch enemy. I truly felt like it was completely her fault, but that's not true. Looking back now, that is not true. But during this time when I was in this relationship, I hated her. Like, I think my girlfriend even got annoyed because I verbalized that a lot. Eventually, we all ended up at this party, me, my roommates, Dakota, my girlfriend, and this was a few weeks after we had come back from Christmas break. The tension between me and my girl was like through the roof. I told her straight up that I didn't trust her anymore, that I thought she was probably cheating, like messing around with me with other guys when she was out with Dakota and all those randoms. She denied it up and down, but everything in me was telling me that I was right. You have to trust your gut, and that's what I was trying to do here. The fight wasn't like in front of everyone, but everyone at the party definitely knew what was going on, so it was kind of embarrassing, but whatever. I accused her of cheating, she denied it, and that was it. I broke up with her right then and there. I dipped, I was like fuming, so I went upstairs and I told my roommates, I was like, I'm the fuck out of here. I was in one of those like tunnel vision, can't think straight, replaying an argument headspaces, just pure adrenaline. I don't know about you guys, but when I get like that, I can't sit still. So instead of taking the bus or calling an Uber, I just started walking home. And it was like an hour and a half walk in the middle of the Ottawa winter. So freezing. My roommates, they didn't even question it. They just came with me, like real ones. Shout out to them. For about like a 2 week period, I was just on my sad boy vibes, you know, bumping Little Peep, chilling by myself, smoking weed. I wasn't going out. I wasn't playing video games. I was just in a downer mood. I was sad, of course. I lost the girl that I used to love, and I was sad that things couldn't have stayed the way I thought they were supposed to be. The entire time this was going on, I just thought she would be feeling the same way, sad and, well, in the same mindset as me. But of course, I was wrong. She wasn't, but I didn't know that yet. I caved like an idiot about 2 weeks in, and I texted her saying that I wanted to talk and that I was sad about how things ended. She agreed and kind of seemed enthusiastic about it, like she was hoping I was going to reach out. So I went over to her house and I basically did all the talking. I just talked about how I was sad and she repeated everything back to me. At the time, I was too dumb to see it, but I basically led her to the answer that I wanted to hear, and we got back together for like 2 days. About 2 days after we got back together, I went over to my girlfriend's house, and of course, what else were we doing? We were getting ready to go downtown to party. That's all Dakota and this girl did. There was random guys over, of course, as well, who I had actually met them once or twice, So I guess they weren't too random, but well, one of them made a comment to me while the girls were getting ready, just being like, "Oh, I never expected to see you around here again." And then, like, a few of his boys chuckled and laughed at me. So I just, like, my heart sank. I knew exactly what they meant. I knew they were hinting at the fact that one of them or multiple of them had fucked my girlfriend. They didn't say it, but I knew it. So right then, I just, like, went and confronted her again, stood on business in front of everyone this time. She denied it up and down. I didn't believe it. She eventually just said that it only happened during the 2 weeks that we had been broken up. And even if that was true, which I guarantee it wasn't, I guarantee it had happened before as well, but let's just say it was only during those 2 weeks, that's still bad. I was at home, sad, missing her, being all cringy, and she was out here just getting drunk, hooking up with randoms. So I dipped. That was it. That was the last straw, obviously. And on my way out, I finally got to tell Dakota how I actually felt. And those guys in the living room, they didn't get in my face because they could have kicked my ass. It would have been 3-on-1, but I feel like they knew that I was ready to crash out, like right there. So they did nothing and I left. It hurt like hell, but who doesn't get their heart broken? It's part of life. After it ended, I was down bad and sad for a while, but what came after was some of the best times of my life. All the stories I've told on this channel, tailgaters, the strip club with the boys, wild house parties, the funny dates, all of that happened after this. The breakup forced me to like prioritize myself and have fun again. My friends from back home started visiting more. I spent more time with my roommates and we had a blast. The last 2 years I spent at school were some of the funnest years of my life. So, yeah, it was painful, but it turned out to be a blessing, which is usually how it goes. I learned my lesson as well. You can't change someone. I couldn't make her want to live a different life and settle down a bit. People have to want to change themselves. I stayed way too long because I thought I knew what was best for her or for us, but that's not how it works. If someone doesn't want to act differently, there's nothing you can do. You just got to bite the bullet and move on. Otherwise, you're delaying the inevitable. Anyways, if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Peace.